So hopefully you're getting the idea here of working with the floats and working with clear. And I thought it would be cool to take a few minutes and give you kind of a more practical sort of real world example of, how you can actually apply this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a thumbnail gallery, like a thumbnail image gallery, which is going to use floats and it's going to use clear. I'm going to show you how you can use clear in possibly a better way, a better technique for using clear anyway. And I'm also going to throw in something else that's kind of cool called compound rules or compound selectors. So what I've done here is I cleared out all of the code, all of the CSS rules and all the content that was sitting inside the body container there inside my HTML page. And I also created for myself 8 quick thumbnail graphics, which are all sitting on my desktop here. So hopefully you have some images that you can use for this. Now, I meant to do this a while back, just a quick aside. I'm going to zoom in on my code here just a little bit so that you can see it a little bit better. So anyway, my apologies for that. I meant to do that, 20 minutes ago. But anyway, okay, so let's see here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start off by creating a new class inside my internal style sheet. And I'm going to call this guy thumbnail controller. By the way, the idea here behind this thumbnail gallery is to use as few CSS rules and as little code as possible to, again, keep things nice and tight and lean and economical. So here we go. Our thumbnail controller, I'm going to throw in a width of 100 pixels. And I'm going to throw a border on this guy. Border, 1 pixel, solid and black. And I'll throw a height on there as well. You know what? I'm going to throw my height after my width. Oops. There we go. So a lot of what you're going to see, by the way, here right off the bat anyway, the initial setup, is a little bit of repetition from some of the previous exercises that we've done. But again, the idea here is to give you a practical example here, a real world example, and give you some practice working with this stuff. So, okay, there's our thumbnail controller, width, height, and a border. No big deal there. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and insert a div into the body area of my document. So open angle bracket div, and I will connect the class that you and I just created here to the div. There we go. Something like this. Okay, great. Okay, I think that looks good. Let's save this up. I'm just going to head back to my browser here and refresh. Okay, great. There's the div. He's under the control of the class rule, the thumbnail controller that you and I just created. I can tell because I can see the width and the height there. I can see the border on there as well. If you really want to make sure, you can always throw on a gaudy background color just to make sure that it's actually functioning. Okay, it is. Great. Okay, I'm going to get rid of my background color, though. I just wanted to show you that there. Okay, so that's great. So now the next thing that I want to do here is I want to take the thumbnail controller that you and I created here, the div that's under the control of the thumbnail controller. I want to take that guy and I want to paste him out 7 more times because we have a total of 8 thumbnails, right? So give me a second here. There's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That ought to do the job there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, great. So now, here's my skill testing question for you. Make sure you save your file here. We have our 8 divs here. We have our thumbnail controller, which of course is going to be controlling all 8 divs. My skill testing question for you is, based on what we've set up here for the thumbnail controller class, will my divs wind up in a row running across the top of the browser window, or will they wind up as a column going down the left-hand side? I feel like we need the Jeopardy music going here, the skill testing question here. Anyway, what do you think? Is it going to be a row or a column? Decide for yourself here. I'm going to hit refresh. We get a column because, remember, we haven't specified a float property yet. which means every single div by default wants to sit on its own line inside the browser, inside the actual page, right? That's how it works. So hopefully that's what you were thinking as well, the column, not the row. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my thumbnail controller class, and I'm going to go and throw in two more properties. Let's throw in our float. So I'm going to go float left and refresh. There we go. There's our column. And the second property that I'm going to throw in is margin right. Margin hyphen right, because I want a gap of space between each of my thumbnail divs, right? So I'm going to use a margin right of 20 pixels. There we go, something like this. Okay, great. Now, this so far isn't really anything new. We haven't really seen anything new yet. And in the previous exercise, I showed you clear, and I showed you a couple of different ways that we could actually apply clear. You saw clear being used as an inline rule. That's just fine as well. But I want to show you a much more useful way for working with clear. Here's what I'm going to do. Back inside my code here, I'm going to go and create another class rule, a second class rule, and I'm simply going to call him clear. That's it. And he's only going to have one property. You guessed it, clear. And I'm going to say clear both, right? Remember, we have clear left, clear right, and clear both. So I'm going to say clear both. Okay. Now, what I want to do here is I want to set up a thumbnail gallery that is comprised of 2 rows of 4 thumbnails. So inside my body code here, I'm going to count down 4 divs, right? That's my top row. After the 4th div, I'm going to hit enter a couple of times, and check this out. I'm going to insert another div, right, whose class is going to be set to clear. Now, what is this div actually going to contain? It's going to contain nothing. All we need it for, it's sort of like a utility div, if you will, and a utility rule. All it's going to do is apply the clear, forcing this guy here down onto the next available line, right? Let's check it out. Save it up and refresh. Oh, did I do that right? Nope, I missed a closing quote there. Whenever something doesn't work, it's usually something small and infinitesimal. Anyway, there we go. So now we have our 2 rows of thumbnails, which is great. So this technique that I just showed you here, this is something I use all the time in the different, I use this when I'm customizing WordPress themes or something like this. A thumbnail gallery is a great example, right? Saves me adding on that inline rule. I suppose you could do that. But what I like about this method is I could do something like this. I'm just going to cut it out of there, Command X or Control X. And I go, you know what? No, I want to set it up so that I have just 2 thumbnails inside each row, something like this, right? I go, no, that's not what I want. I want 3 inside each row. You get the idea, right? So you can move this guy around. You can, cut him and paste him in where he needs to be, this sort of thing, and wind up getting exactly what you want, right? So he's really, really flexible, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. So anyway, so what I'm going to wind up with here is I'm going to go all the way back to what I had, which was the 2 rows of 4, this setup here. But I hope that kind of drives home the point that this technique here is really, really flexible and really easy to work with, right? Because this div is just doing what the rule is telling him to do, right? It's pretty cool. Okay, so hopefully all good. Now, let's see. I'm going to go and, a couple of quick things that I'm going to do here. I want to go back to the thumbnail controller class rule, and I'm going to throw on another property here, just a quick margin bottom. Notice that the thumbnail divs that we have here, they're touching. So I'm going to throw on a margin bottom of 20 pixels just to space them apart. Beautiful. Next up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and throw in my graphics, and I pointed out my graphics that are sitting on my desktop here. So inside each of my thumbnail controller divs, I'm going to go and insert my images. So bear with me here for a second. So open angle bracket IMG, space SRC equals, open quote, and then I just called mine thumb 1 through 8, something like that. Save it up. There's my graphic. Okay, cool. So now all I'm going to do, just give me a quick moment here, is I'm going to take that and copy it and paste it out so that we actually have some cartoon graphics to look at in our example here. And I'm just going to change each of these here, 3 and 4, all the way down here. So I hope this is making sense for you, and I hope you can, make use of this in your own projects and work and things like this. There we go. There's our thumbnail gallery, which I think looks pretty darn cool. It's nice and clean too, isn't it? And you know what's cool here? This is what I love so much about this hands-on exercise here. The whole thing is being controlled by just 2 rules. That's it, right? So I could come along and I could change the width of the border, for example, or maybe the color of the border on just the thumbnail controller and change all of my thumbnails all in one shot, right? Again, there's a very economical approach here that we're trying to take here. So, okay, cool. Awesome stuff. So that pretty much wraps up the floating and the clear, that cool clear technique that I wanted to show you. The last thing that I wanted to show you, and I think this is pretty cool, is what's referred to as a compound rule or a compound selector. What I want to do now is I want to throw in some text underneath each graphic, like a caption almost, a text caption underneath each of my graphics. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and find my first thumbnail controller, which is the orange robot there in the far left corner, top left corner. And just after the image inside the div, I'm going to type in the following. Open angle bracket, P, close angle bracket. So I'm enclosing my text inside a paragraph. Whoops. Like this, right? And my text is going to read, you can put in whatever you want. I think here I'm just going to type in caption text. There we go. Okay, now check this out. I'm going to save this up and head back to my browser and refresh. And what happens is my caption text is there, but he's kind of hidden there. He's kind of getting cut off there. So we have to throw in a little bit of formatting here. So let's check this out. I'm going to go back to my code here, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the height from the thumbnail controller. Usually with we're going to get into layout in the upcoming exercises. Usually what I do is we have to specify a width on a floating object, right? Unless it's an image. Remember we talked about that. But normally I don't specify a height. Normally I allow the content of the container, in our case a div, to determine the height, right? So let me refresh here. There we go. So now the caption text is sitting inside the thumbnail controller div, just like that, right? Okay, cool. But obviously there's, much to be desired here, much left to be desired, the formatting and the spacing and all this kind of junk. And that's what we're going to do next here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create a new rule, a compound rule inside my internal style sheet. So just after clear here, I'm going to hit enter a couple of times. Now, this is kind of cool. Let me type this out, and then I'll kind of explain exactly what's going on here. I'm going to call this guy, so he's a class, so dot, help if I could spell, thumbnail controller, there we go, space, P, space, open squiggly, close squiggly. All right, so if you know about this, cool, awesome, thumbs up to you. If you've never seen anything like this before, or maybe you've seen something like this before, but you're not really sure how it works, here's the deal. What I'm saying is, whatever properties we're about to specify inside the squiggly brackets, we want those properties to be applied to any paragraph, but only if that paragraph resides inside a class called thumbnail controller. Does that make sense? So in other words, if we had other paragraphs inside our document that resided outside of thumbnail controller classes, they would not be formatted. Think of this almost as like conditional formatting. I know a lot of applications out there. Microsoft Excel, for whatever reason, comes to mind from years gone by, but it had something called conditional formatting. If these specific criteria are met, then the formatting will be applied. So our criteria is a paragraph that resides inside a thumbnail controller class, which is what you and I just specified down inside the body, right? Okay, cool. So let's throw in some formatting here. So inside my squiggly brackets, I'm going to throw in just some quick formatting here. Let's do font family. And I'm not doing anything too crazy here. I'll do Verdana, and we'll do font size. I'll do 9 pixels. Let's save that up and take a quick look. There we go. Okay, so we know that the compound rule or the conditional formatting is working because we can see the results there inside our page. Awesome. So how about the spacing? How about the remaining formatting here? Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw in some padding. I'm going to throw in padding of 5 pixels, so 5 pixels of padding on all 4 sides. And if you want, you can save and refresh and check that out. And what else can we do here? I'm going to do margin. Again, it would help if I could, me and my butter thumbs. Margin 0. And I'm going to throw a background on this guy. A background color. You can throw in whatever color you want. I'm going to use $ BBB. And one more thing here. I'm going to do a border. Actually, I'm going to do a border top. So I just want a rule or a line or a border running across the top of my text caption. So border hyphen top. And again, you can use whatever settings you want here. I'm going to do 1 pixel. Maybe I'll change it up here. I'll do dashed and $000. Close it off with a semicolon there. Save, refresh. There we go. There's our nice formatting there with the background color and the dashed rule or the dashed border running right across the top there. And now all I need to do is just take that paragraph, that sort of sample text that I have there. This is usually how I work, by the way, is I throw in like, dummy text during development, like caption text, which you and I just put in there. And then later on, once I've sort of finalized the design, then I'll come back and I'll put in the actual proper text that needs to be in there inside my layout. But in any regard, there you go. There's a much more sort of real-world practical example of working with floats. So you saw the float example there. You got a better technique for working with clear, which I hope you seriously dig. And I also wanted to throw in the extra there for you, the compound rule. So I hope you dig it.